Hello, listeners, and welcome to the We Are CCA podcast. My name is Alan Fernandez, and joining me is my co-host, Jake Ramsey.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And thank you so much for tuning in, and welcome to a very special summer episode of the We Are CCA podcast. We've been hearing from people that they're wondering what happened to the podcast. Nothing has come out. Well, here is the answer to that. But today's episode is going to be a bit special. It's just Jake and I. I don't think we've had an episode like this since we started.
Not yet.
This will be the first one. So we are going to actually just have a conversation, take a review. We've done 12 episodes in the 17-18 school year, Jake, which is
12 episodes.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
At least that's what I count on the playlist. But it's just amazing to see that we've done 12 of them. So Jake and I are just going to reflect back a bit on these 12 episodes. What were some of the stories that stuck out to us, some of the points that stuck out to us, talk about a few of our guests, which first and foremost, every single guest we've had in all 12 episodes, thank you guys so much. Each one of you was fantastic, and Jake and I had a great time talking with all of you.
Yeah, and also thank you to everybody who listened. All the listeners that took the time to go to the YouTube page, check out the podcast and listen to it. You know, this was kind of a passion project for Alan and myself to really give our families a voice to support one another. We felt like the podcast would be a great place for our CCA families to share their experiences with those who are also have families enrolled, or those that were looking to see if CCA would be a fit for them, and kind of getting ideas on how to make this all work for them. And I really think that through the course of the year, start off a little. I mean, our podcasting skills have definitely developed over the year.
Absolutely.
But I think that the idea and the mission behind this has always been, giving our families a voice and really promoting CCA as a place where all families can come and feel included and feel a part of this big community that we have to offer, and how it can benefit their students. So to everyone who took the time to listen and maybe share it, we definitely appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a great year. It really has. We've had a lot of good guests. Just kind of looking back on some of the things that kind of stuck out in my mind, when I think it was episode 1, we talked with Natasha Shane and her daughter. And just when they talked about kind of how to get started on the right foot, just the amount of organization that they went through to make cyber education work for them and to make it manageable seemed overwhelming to me. And I'm a person who doesn't I don't have any skin in the game other than the fact that I work here. Mm-hmm. But it's just so organizationally heavy, that it just was it seemed so overwhelming. And I thought, man, does everybody have to do this? Or if this is what it takes to be successful, no wonder there are families that enroll with us and then after a month they're gone. So I just kept thinking to myself during that episode as we were going through it, there's gotta be a better way, or there's gotta be something that we can do as an organization that takes a little bit of that off the learning coach's plate. Because for me, what's concerning is you spend all that time and kind of mental energy doing the organizational part, that the thing that gets overlooked is maybe supporting the student through the educational process and the learning process. And I thought, I just kept thinking, wow, this is just it seems so daunting. And I can understand why, some families have the experience that they have.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. And that was something that I was catching on to as well. And I thought what stuck out to me about that episode was when Natasha even differentiated that the organization aspect looks differently depending on if you're heading to the lower grade levels, that the sort of organization looks very different there. And so to hear of an organization with older grade level or higher grade level kids, I was like, oh man, I really wonder how different that looks, and just sort of that daunting aspect. How does that daunting aspect still exist but change with lower grade levels? And so, yeah, I think there are a lot of different ways that we could look into on how to improve that aspect, and how to support those families more. And kudos to them for, doing that, regardless of whatever that case may be.
Yeah, I think too. I think the thing that's interesting though is knowing what I know about Edio now. I think a lot of that is kind of taken care of. There's a lot less organization that has to take place because of the automation that's built into Edio. So it takes a little bit of that off of the learning coach's plate, so that they can have their learners really focus on the learning process.
Yeah.
So that was really, I think it's been addressed, but obviously, there's always room to improve no matter, what level you are as an organization. There's always levels to improve the support that you provide to the people that you serve. So,
yeah. Well, it was great to have that feedback, because that's exactly stuff that went into Edio, was the feedback of, hey, some of this organization stuff is a bit daunting and takes too much time. And so Edio being built to address parts of that feedback that we received is definitely really exciting, and definitely something that I know there's still going to be some spots we can improve on, but that we can improve on it in such detail is going to be really, really cool to see in the 18-19 school year.
Yeah, and I know when we were talking before this, you said during your interview with Chris Choi, that you had a takeaway from that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, Chris Choi. So for those that may not have heard the episode yet, this was actually a pre-recorded interview I had with Chris Choi during a casting call we had in Harrisburg. And so it was just a conversation between he and I, and it was a really great episode. And Chris talked a lot about when he was becoming a CCA parent and enrolling his children in there, and his children were pretty low in the grade levels. They were relatively young, and he was very transparent in that was one of the hardest transitions and struggles for him coming into it, was being a CCA parent for lower grade levels, because of how involved that would be, how in tune with his children's academics he had to be in order to keep everything in check. And that was something we talked about. And it was tough for him at first, readjusting schedules and, making sure that they attended their live instructions on time, and working with his work schedule and the rest of the family schedule and other aspects. And it was just very interesting to hear a lot of that, and to get more of a perspective from the parent's side. But what was cool was that towards the end, he highlighted this, in that he really appreciates the quality of education his children receive, and that even though it was a rough start at first, it's the sense that I got from the conversation was that he was thankful for it in the end of it, because he praised the quality of education. He praised the challenge that his children were getting in education, and also being a part of your child's education is a really cool thing, despite how difficult it may seem at times.
Yeah, I mean, he was really engaged in his role as learning coach, I thought.
Yes, very much so.
One of the things, and the fact that he brought his students to a casting call, and that they wanted to participate in that. The fact that, when I talked to him the one day on the phone trying to organize the podcast, he was at a learning coach outreach session. So he is one of those learning coaches that is taking advantage of the supports that we have available. And that's the other thing is, when we talk about, the fact that, these are some issues that families struggle with far as organization and things like that. We do have the staff that are dedicated and passionate and supportive in their efforts to help our families make CCA work for them. We have those programs in place, and it's just a matter of getting those families in touch with those support systems. So it's definitely one of the nicer benefits of becoming a CCA family, is that you have that the organization that you're enrolling with has these programs in place. That it's not just here are the courses, here's the curriculum, you learn the stuff and figure it out. It's here's all that and all this other stuff, all the other things to help you along the way.
No, I'm absolutely thrilled that we as a school offer that, and that we as a school care so much to offer that, and provide any assistance that we can to help our parents, help our families. So that episode with Chris, it was personally one of my favorites. Again, everyone was great, but that one to me was really just a great conversation Chris and I had. Again, he was very transparent, and he and his family had some of the most creative vacation ideas and scheduling I've ever seen. I think he's told the story about for Halloween. I think they went to Disney World or some sort of majestic amusement park like that. I can't recall exactly where, but I thought, oh my gosh, that'd be such a cool way to celebrate Halloween that in other formats of education you couldn't do. So to even see him go further with his involvement and his taking advantage of this platform and this position he's in to do really cool things like that with family, I was like, okay, can I be a part of this family? I want to go to Disney World during Halloween. That's
yeah, and I mean that's
cool.
I think that's something that's always going to be present as far as those opportunities for our families to do that. Even with some of the changes and things that are coming next year, there's still going to be lots of flexibility for you to plan those types of things, trips and stuff like that outside of the umbrella of CCA. The other thing that stuck out is, we did an episode on the socialization opportunities, because that's one of the things that when you hear from parents, especially from me when I'm in the enrollment, hearing families that are thinking about enrolling, we hear, well, I just don't know if I want to take them and isolate them at home. And it's like, well, you don't, that it doesn't have to be an either or. You can still have both. The thing that's nice about CCA is we do have so many well-planned field trip opportunities for students across the state, and the number of those staggers me every time. And knowing how hard those field trip coordinators work to create events that students are going to want to come to and enjoy, and the amount of work that has to be it's just staggering. Better them than me, in my opinion. But that is definitely something too that you don't it doesn't the way that we do it, you don't necessarily have to choose. You can still have both, and now you get to pick and choose the way that you socialize with your peers, rather than just kind of being left to whatever happens in the hallways. Right.
I remember during the casting call, because Chris Troy wasn't the only family/parent we got to talk to. We got to talk to a whole lot of them.
Yeah, they'll be coming at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely release them in pockets, because there was just some really great conversations. But one of the conversations I remember was with a family, and I had asked them the question of, the socialization component, especially in an online platform. There's many studies going into the current generation being the most in tune with the internet and technology. And so I had asked them, I was like, so what has that experience been like for you on knowing that this is something that the generation tends to be more in tune with, and being in a school where it kind of is that prime experience, and it's there and it's present. That's how they navigate it. And I remember them saying that, well, of course, there's definitely, of course, the internet dangers still exist. There's still the concept of internet etiquette, knowing what that is, how to navigate it, and having that conversation, whether you're a virtual student or not. But what was cool is when they highlighted that they actually found it to be better for their children, or their one child in CCA was really thriving off of the way that they could socialize. And they had talked about, it's not like they just talk on chats. They connect with other students in the area, because we are a statewide school. So I remember some parents saying, well, wait, what if my student becomes friends with somebody in Philly? They can't hang out all the time, all of that. But you can still connect with other peers in your area. And I know that they talked a lot about connecting with them, getting to know their families, and being family friends as opposed to just student friends. Mm-hmm. And, scheduling, once everybody got their work done and they attended their live instructions, they would go hang out, go play outside, go do something. And so there was this fluidity and flexibility that they saw with their socialization that could go in many different directions that was different from their experience growing up. Because we talked a lot about that too, and sort of that contrast, and, made me think a lot about that conversation, just how thankful they were that on top of the structure just allowing that, CCA staff and CCA team members also kind of helped guide that discussion. And they attributed a lot to teachers being so adept and so well tuned with the social interactions with children in this internet virtual context.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the introduction and development of technology has created a more global world
Right.
as far as, what you're able to access. And I think that, a lot of times, and I'm a little biased, but in a brick and mortar setting, you get kind of defined geographically.
Right.
And you only have access to who goes to your school.
Mhm.
And is physically in the building with you. The richness of that experience is probably not as deep as if you're able to connect to students anywhere and everywhere,
Right.
from all types of backgrounds. So,
Yeah, I that's one of the things I truly love about seeing our students interact with each other. I mean, from the time that I, and still am, with the drop-in center in Harrisburg, seeing kids who grew up in a more rural setting to kids that grew up in a more urban setting, and seeing them interact both in person, even outside of that, hearing about their interactions over the internet is really cool. And that, as you mentioned, you said this word before, that access to that, to be able to meet somebody who, oh man, I've never had to worry about caring for livestock. What's that experience? Something as simple as that to leading into something as complex as, how did this influence your views on this particular topic or that, is really cool to see, or to see and hear from our students and our families.
it's neat too. It's like, all of our students are different in many, many ways,
Yes.
right? I mean, and it's, there's the full, they run the full spectrum as far as diversity goes,
Mhm.
but they're all connected to this common thread that they wanted something different and they chose this.
Yeah.
So they're different in a lot of ways, but the one thing that they all have in common is they wanted something different, and CCA was the choice that they made. And so they have that shared experience of coming into this new setting, of figuring out how to make it work for them and what that experience is like. And so, yeah, they are very different, but very same, very similar too. I'm trying to think of some of the other. Oh, one of the comments that was made during one of the podcasts that I thought was pretty interesting and kind of actually took me back a little bit because I wasn't sure how to react to it. But we did an episode with Irma Souder and her daughter Cheyenne. And Irma is a family mentor here.
Yeah.
No, a family involvement coordinator here.
Right.
Her daughter Cheyenne is a high school student, and she is a student that comes to the Midtown Center.
Yeah, I was very upset to have missed this episode.
And and we were talking about how to like stay motivated. That middle of the year being kind of the dark winter, the winter is coming kind of thing. And winter's already here at that point. But things get a little doom and gloom there for a while in the middle of the year, and you kind of get stuck in a rut. And we talked about, how do you stay motivated? How do you stay on task?
Right.
And we talked about the importance of teacher communicating with teachers, making sure that you're still staying engaged with your teachers and maintaining that line of communication. She brought up an interesting point. She said, and I think that there are students that share this experience. Calling teachers make them nervous. I thought, what are you talking about? And it never really occurred to me that would be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
That students, it wasn't that students weren't, the reason that students weren't calling teachers was not just because they wanted to be left alone and kind of wanted to hide in the corner and didn't want to really get engaged at all. It could be also that they're just not comfortable doing it. She talked about how she would write down questions on a piece of paper, and that would help kind of frame her conversation that she was going to have with her teacher. That way she knew she was asking the questions that she needed answered, and that the conversation was not over until those questions were answered. And I thought, well, holy cow. I mean, in all the years I worked here, I'd never thought to advise a student to do that, and how much sense that makes. And I thought that was really good advice. I thought it was a really good, exactly what these podcasts are for, is to provide those little nuggets for people to kind of latch on to. And so if you do have a student, at home that has an unwillingness to contact teachers, maybe think about the reason why and drill into that and find out, is it just because they're a little nervous to talk to an adult? Another thing that's nice, though, is some of that's going to be addressed with Edio through the chat feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that chat feature in Edio will allow students to communicate in a way that they are comfortable with.
Right.
Because of text messaging and everything being so, that being kind of those text-based messaging communication.
Yeah. It feels more casual, so it feels more approachable.
Yeah, they feel more approachable and they're more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
That's how they communicate to their friends. You know, they're texting, they're on the, they're doing
Facebook
different
Messenger
things. Yeah,
and
Facebook
all
Messenger,
these,
stuff
yeah.
like that. So, I think it allows students to kind of engage at a level that's comfortable in a way that's comfortable for them. So maybe that'll help address some of that.
Right.
But you're still going to have to talk to your teachers. I mean, there's no getting around that. The communication is going to be still a critical component no matter what learning management system we're running. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But that was the kind of the one piece that I really took away from, was the fact that maybe students were just nervous to pick up the phone. So I never even thought of that.
Well, it's funny to hear that, because even when I listened back to the episode, which again I was upset I couldn't be there for, but even listening back to it and I heard that and I thought, I guess some things don't change regardless of what format of education you're in. Students are still always a little nervous some students are always nervous to talk to their teachers, but it was a great insight for us to have of like, oh man, yeah, we're very different, so we just didn't think of that, and so it was great to hear that.
Well, it's just like, it sounds easier than it really is.
Yeah.
Just call your teacher. Well, that's not so easy for me because that makes me nervous.
Yeah.
Like, that's, sometimes we say these things and we don't necessarily realize, what's going on the other end of that conversation. Yeah. So you tell a student, just call your teacher. Hey, you need to call your teacher. Hey, you need to call your teacher. And they're thinking, talk about panic attack, or I'm not calling my teachers. So that was something that stuck out for sure throughout the year.
Yeah.
Anything else that we, looking back, that you can think?
Yeah, I think the tail end of the year with our podcast episodes was really, really cool.
I think we hit our stride at that point.
Yeah. I think first off, as co-host, I think we definitely.
Somebody had to take an absence in the middle of the year, and so somebody had to fly solo for a little while, and got everything kind of smoothed out so that when that other person came back, everything was running like clockwork. So, but we won't say who was who. We won't say who was who. We're not going to point any fingers here.
Tell me who they were. I'll give them a talking to.
But yeah, I think by the end of the year, we definitely hit our stride as far as really finding like the right questions to ask and the way that driving the conversation the right way. The early episodes were great and provided good information, no doubt. I think the guests were probably held back because the hosts were lacking a little bit.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
I absolutely do. So the tail end, I think of great joy when I think of the tail end. Not to say that I don't think of great joy in the beginning, but I think
or the great Joyce.
The great Joyce. Great segue. But the episode, the two-parter episode really that we did with Ann Culture and the Learning Department here at CCA.
Mm-hmm.
I think those were really, really insightful episodes and content, not even just for us, but also for our listeners, especially them. And to me, a highlight was our second part with Joyce and Joanna, who are both fantastic people, both people that I work with very often as somebody who falls really under the learning department as far as my position goes. And I just think back to passion is the word I want to use. Joanna and Joyce's passion, which again, someone from the department is reflective of almost actually everybody in that department, not even almost everybody, everybody there, was something that was great to listen to, to hear of their excitement working in the midst of putting together a whole new virtual school in 18 months, which is
from the ground up.
Yeah, we talked about daunting earlier. Pick another word that's even greater than daunting and apply that to this situation.
Impossible.
But to hear them share about their excitement of why they were doing it, their excitement of family participation, teacher focused content. It's from their perspectives of working with our students and reflecting the needs of our students and being able to address those needs through something that is, again, very scary but very exciting at the same time, was just really great to hear and to see. For us, we were there, but to see that, it was just a great episode that left me with a smile the rest of the day, because it just again reminded me personally of why we do what we do, and the day-to-day. Sometimes we know why we do what we do, but we don't feel it sometimes because we just get lost in that day-to-day.
Mm-hmm.
And after that particular episode, or that part of the episode, I left feeling why I and the rest of our colleagues do what we do, and that was revitalizing to me, and I hope for the listeners that was like there was a spark there in that conversation that resonated with them on feeling our passion and feeling what CCA is all about.
Yeah, Joyce kind of took over our podcast for a little while there. She became the host, but
you may or may not see a Joyce Joanna podcast. They're gonna really be upset with me for saying that.
Behind the curtain.
Behind the curtain.
Yeah, what's behind the curtain? It really is. I think a lot of times you get lost in the stuff that isn't going right, and you're fixing problems, and you're got families with issues that need to be resolved, and and that stuff happens at every school. But every so often it's nice to connect with and let people express the passion that they have for and what motivates them to do what they do and do it at the level that they do it.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll find many better than Joyce and Joanna and that entire department, to be honest with you. What they've done in 18 months as far as building basically an entire cyber charter school from the ground up in an 18-month period is, miracle is probably the word. It's just an absolute miracle that it happened. And we did another episode too with Ed.
Yeah, Ed.
The internships.
Yep.
The work that he did with the student there and allowing her the opportunity to kind of explore some potential career opportunities, and his willingness to open the door to one of our students, and the experience he found it to be enriching too, and that's the kind of student that we aim to produce in all of our students.
Right.
And I thought that was another episode where I was super pumped to do it. And left there thinking, man, that was I can't wait to see our more of our students do stuff like this.
Yeah, that was also a really great episode. I really enjoyed talking to Ed, and Charlene joined us for that episode too, so shout out to Charlene. We got to tour the facility and got to actually see where was our student during her time there. And that was a phenomenal episode. And I know that ties well into what you've expressed to me as one of your personal favorite episodes, the episode with Charlene and Barry talking about career pathways.
Yeah, since I did that one solo.
Man, I gotta talk to somebody. Who's keep leaving you solo out here?
Oh man, no, our internship. For me personally, I look at the goal of education is knowledge and character.
Right.
If you can find a career in that, that's Dr. Martin Luther King, by the way, if you didn't know. But I think that when you put those two things together, and if you can find a career where you can use your knowledge and develop your character, you'll find a career that's enriching to you as a human being.
Yeah.
And in turn will then make it enriching to the others that you impact through that work. And so I think that definitely career-focused programs like our internship program are great for students to participate in, because it allows them the opportunity to explore those things now and not be a 35-year-old adult still trying to figure out what you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that way you're making the most out of the life that you have. And so I think that I'm interested to see where that program goes. I'm interested to see, what they're able to do with that, how they're able to make it grow and impact our student population and get students excited about their education and kind of taking control of that and accountability for it, because they know that it's a means to an end. It's not the end, but the means to the end. Yeah. So that was kind of what I took away from that one.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a great episode listening back to it, and it just made me think a lot to also redefining education for a number of our students. In my personal experience of working with even the students at the Harrisburg Center, often talks about, okay, well, I want to figure out what I will do when I'm an adult, when I can get my own money, when I can provide for myself, and all of these things. And so there's this thought of, okay, well, how do I do that? And I remember growing up in my personal life with education, a lot of my friends were like, this is a waste of time to come to these classes because it's not helping me reach that goal.
And you want to know why.
You want to know why.
Curious about the why.
Yeah, curious about the why and curious about how to continue diving into that why of like, okay, so this is the why. Okay, well, how do I keep on pursuing that and going for that? And something that you kind of talked about a lot towards the end of the podcast is process. Mm-hmm. You talked a lot, in our conversations outside of the mic or off the mic, you talked a lot about the process, the process for us as employees and our organization, the process for our parents, and then the process for our kids, our learners. What is their process and growth? And that conversation, along with that episode and just the tail end of the entire year, made me think back to one of the key things that made me attracted to CCA, and one of the key things of why I started working here, which was, and this is from the bio, or rather the about me on our website, where it talked about how CCA doesn't really care about, doesn't care about studying, but that's not their focus. The focus isn't about what grades you get and all of that, but it's about your experience. What is it in your education that's providing you a rich experience to take with you once you depart from CCA, to apply into further educating yourself in other schooling and life overall, which life includes work. Mm-hmm. Life includes providing for yourself, or providing for others, depending on what route you take later in life. And so hearing all of that just kind of reconnected all of that in me and made me remember, okay, yeah, we're not just giving a school. We're giving a way to help families, and not even help them, but to work with them on raising and producing these kids that can thrive in every single part of society that they can thrive in.
Yeah, I mean, that conversation on the educational process and focusing on the process rather than the end result is probably a whole podcast in itself, given the amount of time that I have thought and talked about it. And so we won't bore you with it all on this one. Maybe it is a topic for an episode in the future. But
absolutely,
I definitely would like to expand on that, because I think it, in talking with individuals here that are staff members, it makes sense, kind of the focusing on the process rather than the end result.
Yeah.
Looking forward. So we've got a big school year coming up, man.
One for the ages.
18-19 is going to go down in the history books. Here comes Edio. Here comes the Edio train right down the pike. This is a big leap. And it's an important one. It's one that has, I think, the process to get to where we are. Again, talking about process was correct. I think you take the stakeholders, you take your staff, you take your learners, you take your families, you ask them the questions, and then you take their feedback and implement that in your development of a program. And having done these EDIO trainings now today was actually the first day we did new families.
Yeah.
But over the last couple months, we've had trainings for returning families. The feedback that we've gotten, I think that EDIO has hit the mark for the most part.
Yeah.
There's a few things that we're going to tweak, and that feedback process is never going to stop.
Right.
So that input from families is what is going to drive, the decisions that we make as far as changes to EDIO that are going to come in the future, and some of those have already been made.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just really impressed with the fact that the quality of the product at the end was because of the quality of the process before.
Yeah.
And so that is, to me, a prime example of focusing on the process rather than the end result. But I can't, for those of you who haven't seen it, just wait. It's a shiny red Corvette of a learning management system. You better know how to drive it, no doubt. You're gonna have to take her easy and keep her under 45 mile an hour for a while. But once you get it broken in, you'll be flying down the racetrack. And I think that's kind of a good analogy for it. I mean, it really is. It's a sports car, man. You really, it's going to take some time to really get the hang of how it all works, but and how to get the most out of it that you can. But once you figure that bad boy out, you're going to be off and running with it. And just the ease of use, the simplicity, the seamlessness in which you transition from one thing to the other, the information that's available, the vast amount of information that's available, and how you access it.
Yeah, the presentation.
It's just
man.
The whole thing, man. And again, no system's perfect right off the bat. You're going to have, like I said, we've already made changes, and we've already looked at, what changes we're going to make for the next version. But I think this first version is about as good as it could be. And I'm really looking forward to seeing families, get in the driver's seat and see how it works.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that repeated trust our families have in us with this. I know that was something big that the learning department we talked about just amongst ourselves and with some other staff members is families, returning ones, trusting us with the shift and knowing that the things that we're directing and we're leading towards is for the betterment of not just us as staff, but especially mainly them and their experience, and the trust of new families to say, recognize this is a huge shift for you, but based on what you're about, based on the people I've met, based on what you are offering, I'm going to trust you and jump in and experience what it is that you are all passionate about and what it is that has had some of these families stay for so long. So to the families, we thank you so much for your excitement, your patience as well as we go into the new year, and we are looking so forward to it. And yeah, for those that haven't seen it, once you see EDIO, you'll be taken aback.
yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
It's impressive. It really is. And that's not us. I'm not selling you. I'm not selling it. I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
It'll sell itself.
Absolutely.
Alan, this was a fun year, man.
It was.
I think one of the things too that Alan and I had talked about before the podcast was really, this podcast is for you. It's a We Are CCA podcast, right? So it's not Alan's podcast. It's not Jake's podcast. It's not just the two of ours. We don't have ownership of it. It's for the entire CCA community. It's all of ours. And for you to make it yours, we want your input. So get on Facebook, get on Twitter, get on YouTube, and put comments down. Let us know what topics you want to hear about, some of the information that you're lacking that you want. Give us some ideas on things that you'd like to hear about, and we'll put the guests together, we'll figure it out, and we will make this because it's not about us. This podcast is for everybody that's part of this community and those who are wanting to be part of the community. So
yep. However you find us, if there's a comment box, drop an idea, drop a thought. We'd love to hear more. And again, it's us. It's we are CCA. So this is what it's all about. So
if you are a family who is looking at enrolling their students for next year, enrollment is open all year long, 24/7. You can just go on to the website at www.ccaeducate.me. click the Enroll Now link and start the process. If you're not quite sure if CCA is the right fit for you, stop in at one of the offices. We have branch offices all across the state. Visit the website for information. Check out the YouTube page. There's a lot of videos there. But never hesitate to come to an open house or an informational session just to get some basic info about the school and who we are and what we do. So
Absolutely. Or even give us a call or an email.
That's
Those
right.
are acceptable as well.
Thank you all for listening. It's been a great year. Looking forward to 2018-19. Everybody have a great and safe summer.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
And remember, we are CCA.